What's up, everyone? Today we're talking about the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, the best race of the 2023 season. But before we get into it, let's take a look back at how the 2023 season was shaping up. Actually, maybe it's better not to remember. Red Bull was steamrolling the competition. At that point, they had won all 14 races of the season, with Max Verstappen on a streak of 10 consecutive victories. Unless you were a Red Bull or Verstappen fan. And, well, what do you expect? Of course they were loving it. The rest of us were completely fed up. The season had been pretty dull. Up to that point, there had really only been one truly great race, the Dutch Grand Prix. It set a record for overtakes, and was perhaps the best race of 2023. There were a few decent ones too, Austria, Silverstone, those kinds of races. Monaco and Australia were alright, but overall, what a disappointing season. So, to sum it up, Red Bull was unbeaten. Verstappen had racked up 10 straight wins, breaking Sebastian Vettel's record, and it looked like nobody could stop them. The championship standings looked like this. Verstappen already had one hand on the trophy, actually, more like 1.9 hands. Perez was comfortably in second place despite his underwhelming season, while Alonso sat in third. And well, here are the standings. So, we arrived at the Singapore Grand Prix, which featured changes to the circuit layout. The slow stadium section in Sector 3 had been removed, turning it into one long straight, and honestly, it was a big improvement. Then came the on-track action, and to everyone's surprise, Red Bull suddenly lost its edge. The track was extremely difficult for the previously unbeatable RB19. The team struggled massively to get the tires into the right operating window, so much so that Ferrari topped FP1, FP2, and FP3. And those Red Bull issues hurt them most where it mattered most, over a single lap. And then, my friend, chaos broke loose. Saturday arrived, and qualifying was shaping up to be a thriller. It started with Verstappen stopping at the pit exit. Controversy. It sparked a huge debate, although in the end, nothing came of it. Then, at the end of Q1, with everyone improving their lap times, Lance Stroll crashed in the final corner and brought out the red flag. That was the end of Q1, and among those eliminated was Oscar Piastri, unlucky. Heading into Q2, the drama only intensified. The Red Bulls were struggling just to make it into Q3. As the clock hit 0, Verstappen crossed the line sitting in 10th place. Meanwhile, Perez, well, he spun. And in one of the wildest storylines of the season, Liam Lawson knocked Verstappen out of Q3 by just 0.07 of a second. Lawson, in only his third Formula One race, had eliminated Verstappen from Q3. Absolutely insane. So, for the first time since 2018, both Red Bulls failed to reach Q3. And then came Q3. More drama awaited. Sainz set the fastest time right at the end. Norris crossed the line in second, but Leclerc moved ahead of him. Russell also came close, but by just 72 thousandths of a second, he fell short as well. That meant Carlos Sainz had taken pole position in Singapore and now had a chance to end Red Bull's unbeaten streak. The rest of the grid lined up like this: Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton, Magnussen, and Alonso, with Hülkenberg and Lawson rounding out the top 10. And yes, Verstappen was starting all the way down in P11. Then came Sunday, and the tension was in the air. For the first time all season, the fight for victory was wide open. Verstappen was only P11 in a car that simply wasn't performing at its usual level. Among the frontrunners, everyone was starting on medium tires, except Leclerc, who had opted for the softs. Verstappen and Perez, meanwhile, started on hard tires, which in Singapore is usually not a very good thing. And just like that, the red lights went out and the Singapore Grand Prix was underway. Sainz got a great start, and so did Leclerc, who, on the soft tires, snatched P2 from Russell. Hamilton also cut nicely through turns 1 and 2 and grabbed third place. But on lap 2, he gave the positions back, so forget about that. Tsunoda was already out on the opening lap. That's because Perez practically murdered him at the start. Verstappen was gaining positions, passing Hülkenberg and then Magnussen after several attempts, because in race conditions the Red Bull was performing much better than it had in qualifying. The car wasn't amazing by any means, still far from its usual level, but over medium and long runs it no longer suffered from the tire warm-up issues. Perez also passed Oscar Piastri, though that was only for P13. At that point, two trains were forming. One at the front with Sainz, Leclerc, Russell, Norris, and Hamilton, and another with Alonso, Ocon, and Verstappen fighting over P6. Up front, Sainz was simply managing the pace. Behind him was Leclerc on soft tires, with the tire almost falling apart and making overtaking difficult. So Sainz was just setting the gentlest pace possible. The goal was also for Sainz to build a 3-second gap over Leclerc to avoid being undercut, which in Singapore, as you know, is one of the most powerful strategic weapons in the championship. Then, on lap 20, yes, not much had happened until then, Logan Sargent hit the wall. He scattered debris all over the track, headed to the pits, and the safety car was deployed. As a result, everyone pitted: Sainz, Leclerc, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, all of them. Sainz had a good stop and rejoined the track, but Leclerc's stop was, well, Ferrari being Ferrari with Leclerc. So, Sainz was leading, with Russell in third, Norris in fifth, and Leclerc in sixth. And I list them in that order because Verstappen and Perez hadn't stopped yet and were running second and fourth, but they would still need to pit. And Alonso, man, what was that, Alonso? But let's forgive him, because pretty much everyone has made that mistake entering the pits in a video game. Too bad he got a 5-second penalty for it. Then, from lap 22 to 23, the race restarted with Sainz still in the lead. But now it was time to work through Verstappen and Perez. First, Leclerc made a small mistake and Hamilton got past him. At the end of lap 23, Russell overtook Verstappen, while Norris passed Perez at the same time. On the following lap, Hamilton went past Perez, even running outside the track limits. I have no idea how that wasn't investigated. Norris passed Verstappen on lap 25, and Leclerc got by Perez as well. On lap 27, it was Lewis Hamilton's turn to overtake his old rival. Leclerc passed him on the following lap too. Everyone was getting past Max. Meanwhile, at the front, Carlos Sainz was under pressure from George Russell. DRS range, less than a second behind. And with Sainz once again controlling the pace to preserve his tires, Russell, Norris, and Hamilton all closed in. The top four were nose to tail. What a race. The victory was completely up for grabs, and the fight for P7 was a good one. Alonso dived down the inside to pass Perez, but the Mexican driver pulled off a beautiful switchback. As a result, Ocon came charging through and was overtaking Alonso around the outside. The Spaniard tried to hold on, but the Frenchman committed all the way and took P8. What a battle. Man, what a battle. Then, on lap 39, Esteban Ocon pulled off a brilliant switchback on Perez as well. Perez, who had been overtaken by just about everyone at that point, headed into the pits. Verstappen did the same on lap 40, fitting medium tires and rejoining in 15th place. At that moment, it looked like his race was basically over, right? Meanwhile, at the front, Sainz was saying over the radio that he still had about a second of pace in hand if he needed to push harder. Russell replied, "I'm surprised he didn't say he had to." The race stayed in that tense train of cars until Esteban Ocon stopped on track at turn 2, bringing out a virtual safety car on lap 43. During the VSC, both Mercedes drivers pitted for medium tires, while the Ferraris and Norris stayed out. Now everything was going to change. We had different strategies in play. At the same time, Aston Martin made a complete mess of Alonso's race, with a ridiculous pit stop that lasted 25 seconds. The green flag was shown again, and Russell and Hamilton had roughly 16 laps to make up 15 seconds to Sainz. And Alonso, now on soft tires, made a mistake all by himself. What a rough period for him. Meanwhile, Russell, on fresh medium tires, was lapping almost 2 seconds faster per lap than the cars ahead. He was coming. In fact, by lap 53 he was right on Leclerc's gearbox, and with a beautiful switchback move he took P3. There's Russell. On the following lap, he got past Hamilton as well. Further back, Max Verstappen was carving his way through the field. He passed Joe, then Hülkenberg. Liam Lawson put up quite a fight, but Verstappen got by him as well. Then he caught Oscar Piastri to move up to 7th place. He also passed Gasly for P6. What a race from Max Verstappen. Meanwhile, at the front, the Mercedes drivers had caught Norris and Sainz, and the Spaniard kept asking over the radio, "What's the gap to Norris? Why?"
Because Sainz was deliberately giving Norris DRS.
Lando 0.8 behind, 0.8 with DRS. Russell no DRS.
Yeah, it's on purpose.
Copy that.
Knowing Norris wasn't going to overtake him, so that Norris could defend against the faster Mercedes cars behind. In the closing laps, we had 4 drivers fighting for the win, all bunched together. The finish was simply sensational. And the craziest part? The fastest of those 4 drivers was Hamilton. At that point, Russell attacked Lando Norris, but Norris defended brilliantly and held on to P2. The battle was becoming more and more intense, more and more tense. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez nearly took Alex Albon out, and for that he received only a 5-second penalty. Just 5 seconds.
5 seconds, it's a joke.
But in the fight for the lead, everyone was right on top of each other. It's hard to fully describe all the details here, you know? It was an incredibly thrilling finish, with the outcome completely up in the air. And the final lap was completely open. Sainz was in P1, Norris in P2, Russell in P3, and Hamilton in P4. Nothing was decided yet, despite how difficult overtaking is at Marina Bay. Nothing happened down the long straight. But then, a little further ahead, the moment came.
That's the next question. Lando's still pushing for the win. Russell's off! George Russell into the wall and out of the race! The British driver who was charging for victory is out!
What a collapse, Russell. With that, he was out of the race. Russell lost the podium on the final lap. The final lap. And so, after this incredible finish, Carlos Sainz won the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, with Lando Norris finishing second and Lewis Hamilton third. What a race in Singapore. It wasn't exciting from start to finish, but it was a great race nonetheless. Leclerc came home fourth, with Verstappen right on his tail in fifth. What a drive from the Dutchman. And with that, Red Bull lost its perfect winning record for the season. Ferrari had won, just as happened back in 1988. It was the biggest victory of Sainz's career and only his second Formula One win. All 3 drivers on the podium delivered outstanding performances. And thanks to a racing IQ that was above the rest, the victory went to the Spaniard. Translation: one of the smartest drives of all time. The final results were as follows: Sainz, Norris, and Hamilton on the podium. Leclerc finished 4th, Verstappen 5th, an excellent race from him. Then came Gasly, followed by Piastri, who had started all the way back in 17th. Perez, after his penalty, Lawson, and Magnussen rounded out the top 10. 5 drivers retired from the race. George Russell, as you saw, who was having a rather questionable season at the time, along with Bottas, Ocon, Tsunoda, and Stroll, who didn't even start because of his qualifying crash. The championship standings now looked like this. Verstappen was practically champion already. Hamilton moved up to 3rd in the standings, and Sainz opened up a sizable gap to Leclerc. But a lot would change afterward. Max Verstappen would secure his 3rd world championship in the Qatar Sprint, just 2 races after Singapore. From then on, he wouldn't lose another race for the rest of the season, breaking victory records and continuing his dominant run. And today, as you all know, he's a 4-time world champion. Sainz ended up being outscored by Leclerc in 2023. Then, after the announcement of Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari on February 1st, 2024, Sainz was effectively put on notice. He is currently driving for the Williams team. In 2024, he won 2 races, Australia and Mexico. So that was the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Leave a like and share the video with your friends. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. The links are in the description. That's it, we're done here. If you want a cool. If not, no worries. Leave your suggestions in the comments. Thanks so much for watching the video all the way to the end. Bye guys, see you next time.